Release the Kraken!
Greetings, fellow game designers. Ron here at Lame Duck Studios, and I'm excited to present that Rocket Flip is now available on Google Play for download. It is Android only at the moment, but it is available in open beta testing. That means that you can hop on to lameduckstudios.com and follow the link, which will bring you to the Rocket Flip download page. If you do decide to search for it in the Google Play Store, it is Rocket Flip, one word. Just be aware of that. If you put a space in there, you will get somebody else. So just make sure that you do no spaces here. And that is, of course, by Lame Duck Studios. And you'll see the amazing icon and the aliens and the most updated release notes and that sort of thing. Yay! And you can check it out over here, Lame Duck Studios, on the release notes and what is available. Okay, so what's been going on? Well, quite a bit. So if you've been following the progress of Rocket Flip the last couple years, you will know that it is a project that should have taken about 3 months, but it did take me about 3 years in between teaching and doing other things. And it's a bit of a passion project, and it's excited to have it out. And now that it's an open beta testing, it's at the phase where I can kind of see what else is going on, what you guys think, other ways to improve. And yeah, go ahead and check that out. If you've been following the last devlog, you would have seen that it broke pretty badly on the most previous update. That was back in, I think, mid-July-ish when it decided to crash and burn. And then I had to go through quite a bit of revisions and debugging and trying to fix it to get it working. So the particular error I was getting for quite a while was an array out of bounds error. And if you're not very familiar with programming or game development or anything like that, an array is just a list of items. And there are a few different types of arrays. That really isn't all that important, but in general there are lists, so you could have item, and they're usually done like this. So you have item 1, item 2, item 3, and so on. And depending on how many items are in that list, it can be a big array, small array, that doesn't really matter. But you have a finite amount of elements, and you want to make sure that the number of elements is consistent because it's how much memory you have for that object or whatever that array list is. And if you get an out of bounds error, that means that some part of the code is trying to get access to an element that does not exist in the array, typically an element that is bigger than what the array size is. So you can see that in layman's terms here, this is elements 1, 2, and 3. And if I were to try to access, a line of code and say get access to item 4, this would throw an error. So it would either throw, depending on the program and how it's set up and what kind of safeties you have, it will throw either a warning and say, hey, this was trying to access more memory than it was allowed, or an item that it should not have had access to, and it will silently fail in the background. There's like a try-catch in the background that kind of prevents the entire program from crashing and memory being allocated when it shouldn't. And that's kind of like the best case scenario. The other end of that is the program does allow access to this memory and it causes it to shuts down or crashes or whatever. And then there's like a middle ground where it does manage to access the memory that it should not have had access to, but it does not crash the computer or it doesn't crash the program. What it does is it gets access to that memory and starts messing with things in the background, which is called a memory leak, and it causes other kinds of problems. So for the past 2 months, I've been trying to figure out why I keep getting this out of bounds here. I was looking through the code, trying to find out if anything accessed anything that it should not have. And for the life of me, I couldn't find it. It kept pointing to one area in the code, which was the shop that I had created for the game. And I would take the array of the shop apart. I would take the structure apart, which is just an advanced array that has so a regular array holds a single list of items of the same type, whereas a structure can hold multiple types of items. So there's a structure for the different types of ships and all the associated data, like its mass and how much thrust it has and its description and that sort of thing. So all that's kind of like built inside that structure, which has an array of how many ships there are. So I went through item by item, line by line, to see if there was something being kind of screwy in there, and it kept suggesting that there was something in there. And I say suggesting because every time I would remove a thing and the program would run successfully, and then I would put that thing back in and it would cause a crash, that, by reason of deduction, because that's the only method that I had for this, was going item by item, remove an item, put an item back in, the program would work. It would seem like that was the thing, but then when I would shut Unreal down and then relaunch Unreal later, the problem would show up again, which is why I was like, okay, so it can't be this one thing. And then I tried building the array of just that item, and it works. And I tried building the array of just a different item, and it worked. And I went through all the different ships, and it worked for every single one. But if I loaded them up with all the ships, it would crash. So the way Unreal kind of handles references, so when you have an object that refers to another object, it loads all those objects into memory. So for example, if I go to, let's see, if I go to my player ship here, and I look at the parent object, in this case the rocket parent, and I go view its references. So if I right click and go to reference viewer, it will load up every item that this object is referenced by. And so it opens up a bit of a web of like links. So whenever you have one object that references something, it opens up all of that object. And that object, if it references stuff, pulls all of those things into memory, and then domino effect down the line, and it can be a very big mess. So you got to be kind of particular about references and how you utilize them. So for example, this one pulls in all the references to everything else that references it, and so on. So these are the things that kind of talk to it. And if I were to grab a different object and see what it references, you can see this one only has a couple, right? This one has the structure for the shop. It has the widget for the main game widget there. It has a reference to the static mesh. It has a reference to the explosion, and then it has a reference to the rocket parent. So whenever this object loads, these are the things that it talks to, and then these things would then load in their references. So so again, this would open this up, and you'll saw that this one has all of these references, right? And then this thing over here has all of these references, and then so on, and it kind of goes down the list. So you got to be aware of that. So I went step by step, one object at a time, looking at all of the different references and making sure that they were stable, and that it wasn't any like breaks in them, or that it wasn't referring to an object that had some other kind of break in it somewhere, which took a while, but I did go through all that. And again, I didn't really find anything that was wrong. I saw a few errors that would creep in under different operating sessions of the game, but nothing really definitive. It was always something here or something there, and I kept feeling like I was chasing my tail. And not to bash Unreal forums, but I wasn't really getting any help there. I posted a couple different times in a few different ways, playing lawyer, basically asking the same question from different angles, hoping that somebody had experienced something similar and in close of enough proximity to what I was dealing with to see if there was another avenue. You can see here in the various forums that there were a bunch of different people who had experienced something along those lines, but none of those things really seemed to hit the nail on the head. And you can see that in my particular posts. I've got a lot of people looking, but nobody really has an answer. Nobody really anteed up an answer. They're like, well, I don't know. Like here, this one I posted a while ago, I have 105 views, but I've only got one reply, and that reply is myself. As a follow-up of, this is something else that I found. This is like trying to get me closer. And then this is another variation of the same kind of question a little bit later. You can see I have 114 views. Again, only one reply, and that reply is myself. And sometimes that happens if you have something that's too specific, that is so unique to your particular program that it's very difficult for them to narrow down. And you also have the other end of the spectrum, if it's too broad, it's also difficult to narrow down. And a thing that kind of helps out is if you post, screenshots, and if you post, the code snippets and the error logs, that can kind of help people debug and that sort of thing. But I wasn't really getting any responses. I tried through there, and I tried through Reddit, and I tried there, and it wasn't very helpful. Now, the particular error that I was chasing is something that I had experienced before in a different project, where if you create a structure in Unreal, and this is a known thing, but again, going back to arrays and that sort of thing, so let me go into data, and then here's like an object structure. And an object structure is just an array that can hold different types of items. So it has various elements, and then each one of those can have some items. And in the visual scripting part of Unreal, so if you're not writing an actual code, you're using the visual part of that, it's pretty well known all the way up through Unreal 5.3 that if you create a structure and later you change it, you're looking at headaches, because they don't like to be updated very well. And you can see here that I'm in Unreal 4.27, and I can actually change the order of items inside of my structure here. But if I open up Unreal 5, it looks a little bit different, but the same kind of rules apply. I have my elements, and if I want to add a couple of these, you can see I can add elements to the array, but you can see like I can't really change the order of them. I don't really have the option to change them like I do in here, where I know I have this up and down arrow that can change the order. And again, it comes back to them kind of knowing that making changes to the structures in Blueprint can be a bit buggy, and that is not always the case. But sometimes it's fine. I've changed structures over and over and over again and never had a problem. And in some programs, and then in other builds of various games, I might change it once and it totally kills the program. But that's present all the way up through Unreal 5, and they know about it. So that's why my assumption is that's why you can't modify them after they're made here. So I don't know, but anyway, so I went through all that and tried to figure that out, and it didn't really help. So what I ended up doing was migrating the project from Unreal 4.24, which is what I was building in. And I hadn't migrated the project over before, just because whenever you set up the project and all of the build configurations for a particular system, for example, I'm building this out to Android, well, Unreal is very particular about the type of stuff that you can build out to. So, for example, we're only using Android 4. 4.0 to be exact, and we have to use a very specific SDK for Android, and we're only allowed to target specific SDKs within a very narrow window. So I didn't want to get the next version and then have to reset all that up. I'm trying to save myself some headaches, basically. And so it got to the point to where not only was the program not really working, but I had not updated Unreal in such a long time, because I was 4.24, now Unreal 5 is out. And Android, the newest version of Android is several versions ahead, and I'm several versions behind. So I couldn't, even if I wanted to, even if the game was running perfectly and I wanted to build out to Android, the new restrictions for the new Android and Google Play policies would not support the platforms I could push out to, or the target SDKs I could push out to with that type. So I had to ultimately upgrade anyway. And since I knew that was going to be a thing, I just went ahead and migrated. Now, there is a migration tool, which is great. You can right-click on an object and do asset actions and then migrate, which is the most direct route that you can take. If you're not used to doing migration, you can just go to the project file, and then you can select everything, and then you can create a new project. You can see I have my various projects here. You can create a new project and then just copy and paste all of your stuff into the that folder, and that's the kind of the lazy man way of doing it. But there's another way. If you're on the Epic launcher and you go to, so let's say I'm in 4.24 and I go to open the engine in 4.27 or 5, and I go to open my project from the new engine, it'll ask very conveniently, do you want to upgrade the project over? And you just click yes, and usually it will do it, which is another reason why, fanboy alert, I prefer Unreal over Unity. I've had so many Unity projects where I tried to do that and it just doesn't work. And Unreal, it works more often than not. If you're too many versions apart, it won't do it. You have to do it by hand. So that's another reason why I kind of avoided it, because I knew I was so many versions behind. So anyway, I went ahead and did the migration over, and I was like, you know what, I have some broken asset references, and I want to clean the project anyway. So what I did was I did just use the migration tool that was in here. And what's nice about using the migration tool is it will only pull over the assets that have direct references from your project. It's very similar to where if you were to do a build and build the project to go to like Android or to PC or whatever, that build package only packages things that have direct references in the code from other assets or whatever are in there. So it's the most clean way of doing it. And I figured I would do that, and anything that wasn't referenced would get dropped, and then maybe I'd get lucky and whatever got dropped was part of the thing that was causing some problems. And once I migrated over to 4.27, you can see that this is the version that I'm in. I'm in 4.27 here. A lot of those errors kind of just went away, and so that I went through and I just removed any code that I wasn't using, just because whenever you're building a project, quite often you're going to have large sections of code that you're built, and then you changed your mind and said, hey, well, that doesn't work quite the way I want, or maybe there's a better way of doing it, and there's like you don't really delete that section of code, you comment it out, or if you're using Blueprint, you just detach the execution node, and then you kind of leave this big chunk of code that doesn't run just kind of hanging out there. And on a professional side of it, when you push that out to your package, to your designated target, you want to remove all that stuff. And since I had to remove all that stuff anyway, I just went ahead and started removing all that stuff. And a lot of the errors that I was having just kind of went away, either because it was in that stuff, or it's a memory leak, and whenever you change memory in a memory leak situation, the problem will go away temporarily, and then it'll manifest later on when finally that piece of memory gets accessed again. So I'm not really sure what end of the spectrum that is, but so far it's been building across multiple devices, and it's been very consistent without breaking. So yay me. Yay us, because we get to test out Rocket Flip now, which is also, if you're downloading it, this is why we're doing bug tests, just to make sure that it works out and some other stuff. So anyway, long-winded spiel. It is working. It's good. That's happy, and the project is pretty clean. So this time I want to take a look at the new features and what's in Rocket Flip. So here we go. I'll go ahead and hit play. You can see it's beautiful. It loads up. Yay! The main interface is still kind of the same. You can see we do have the ship hangar and all of the ships that are available. Yay! We have endless mode, which allows you to just flip to your heart's content without any restrictions. We do have the full list of achievements. All the achievements work, and they are there. We'll go through what these do. First one, of course, is Maiden Voyage, which is successfully land your first flip. And I got some feedback about this one. Originally, if you were to miss this one, you weren't able to go back and do it again, but I went ahead and made sure that you can go back and do it again. I won't be cruel, but I had some folks who are like, look, that's not really fair if you do it that way, so I did take that into account, so I appreciate the feedback. Don't be shy to let me know things. Party Pooper is if you pop at least 10 balloons, and let me go ahead and, I'm used to the background music for Rocket Flip, but I'm going to go ahead and just turn the volume down, because I know that after a while it can be a bit drolly. if you're listening to it and you're not like playing the game. So go ahead and turn that down. Balloon Hunter is a bronze medal if you pop 100 balloons. You get the Hunter Silver if you do 500 balloons, and you get the gold for 1,000 balloons. Infinite Patience. This is a great one for if you hover in place for 10 minutes. Yeah, go ahead and do that. That's why this is called Infinite Patience. You can see it is watching paint dry. That's the icon here. Regular Jumping Bean. You can see him. He's awesome. He's got the jumping bean, and then this is complete 10 flips in a row. So if you flip without any breaks, it's 10. It's 100 flip, 500 flips in a row. I said 10, but it's 500 flips in a row. Dust Devil, 500 revolutions. Stairmaster. This one is if you climb 50 ladders. Now the tallest ladder in the game is about 20, but if you consecutively climb different sets of ladders, you can still get it. So I made sure to set that in. Rocketeer. This is complete all missions with the Firecracker. And then you have, of course, Mission Specialist, complete all missions with the Thunder Flipper. And then you have same thing for Daredevil. You have the Stout Cruiser. And then you have the Space Cowboy for the Flying Saucer, and then the Astronaut, which is the lander. Average Space Jockey, Shining, Cosmonaut, and Decorated Flight Officer. These are all getting medals. So in this case, if you get 12 missions with at least a bronze medal, you get this one, and then 12 on silver for this one, 12 on gold for this one. Perfect Flight Record. Complete all missions without crashing. That one is for those who are really crazy and can master the game. Good luck. Hard Worker. This one is for getting a bronze medal on every mission. Silver Spoon is for all those who can get silver medals on every mission. You have the Gold Digger. You managed to get a gold medal on every mission. And then we have the toughest of the group down here. There's Next to Impossible, which is to complete all missions in a single playthrough. So if you boot up a version of the game, that session, while it's live, is one session. So example, right now, this is one session of the game, okay? And so if I play the game and then I exit the game back to the main menu, it's still one session. And if I re-enter from the main menu into play, that's still one session. So I can change out ships and stuff. So it's still one session. If I close the app and then reopen the app, it counts as a new session. So if it goes to sleep or whatever, that might trigger that. So that's one of those things you guys can test play and see how that goes if you like. The Impossible is to do all the missions on a single playthrough without crashing. There are a few folks out there who are super nuts, and they will take the game to the impossible, and I'm excited to see anybody achieve these. I'm in the process of setting these up so they do interact with the Google Store, so that it'll be like a leaderboard situation, and you can see the few crazy folks out there who have actually completed this. That's not there yet. You can, of course, get the achievement, but it does not yet sync to Google Play. Working on that. That's in this beta process of things I'm going to be completing. So, but those are all there. And then, of course, Ship Hanger, we saw that. Settings, nothing new in settings. Right now, if you do show FPS, it just shows the FPS, and there's some debug information here that will be removed a bit later. But in here, I do want to add in some sound effects and music volume sliders because, you need to have those kind of things. And then stats has been upgraded. So we have our usual stats, and you can see the number of game sessions I've currently had. I'm on my 7th game session. So I've closed the game and reopened it. This is my 7th. If I click next, that's going to take me into the mission completed section. And I went ahead and added this. Yes, you can see your mission complete on your actual missions list here. We have over 30 missions. And while you can see it here, that really is just to kind of help for folks to see what ships they've used to complete certain missions on. So you can see the ship that was used to complete the tutorial missions, and then every ship you've used will show up here for that mission, and you'll be able to diagnose which ones you're missing to get those achievements. So that is in there. It doesn't look very pretty, but I'm gonna pretty it up before the official release. But just wanted to kind of let you guys know all those. And then feedback is still feedback. That takes you to the feedback page. And if you hit it, that will open up the Lame Duck Studios feedback page. One thing that's not in here, I don't think I have the version of Android. So if you go to leave me a comment about feedback, please just state in here for like additional feedback what version of Unreal you're using, what phone you're using. I might go back and just fix that in here, but in the event that I don't get around to that, be kind. There's like hundreds of different phones, so if it's a Motorola or whatever, just let me know the phone and then the actual version of Android you might be using. Just because the current version of the game I think targets SDKs 13 through 30, so if it's not within that range, the game may not work. So there's that. So if I go to the missions here, we can go, of course, pick a mission, and I'll go ahead and start with tutorial number 1 here. Here we are, all loaded in. The first one is complete a flip. So this is kind of the tutorial section. And maybe I'll have to add a tutorial for the tutorial to kind of like give an idea. But basically, a single flip is one jump, one landing. So if I tap the screen here, this is one flip. Hey, he jumped, the ship landed. That is one flip. The next mission on here is pop the balloon and land. So I have to continuously tap until I reach the balloon, pop it, and then land. Yay. 3 revolutions. So a revolution is when you are in the air and you do a full 360 without landing. So I'm in the air, and you can see as I'm doing 360s here, it's counting. So now I'm over my revolution count that I need. Those are banked, and all I have to do is now I have to land it for those to count. So that's kind of how you do that. The game does require a bit of patience, which a lot of folks don't have these days because they're very, very quick. So I'm challenging your patience to do some things, but that's in general how that works. Climb one ladder. These are a bit tricky. You can see they have some debug stuff on there. Ladders. I wanted ladders in the game from the very beginning. When I first started like drafting ideas for the game, I wanted these ladders in there, and they were one of the things that took the longest to figure out how to get these to work. But basically, there's a little flap that opens and closes, and you have to jump and then land on it before it drops back down, without, of course, letting it smack you and destroy you. So I have the timing down, and I can land on the ladder, but that's how those work. And you can see that I still got a silver for the time that I elapsed over here, so I have to go back and dial in the time on there. Now, if you, of course, get hit by the ladder, it will destroy you. If you crash into the ladder, so like if it's in the up position and I hit the bottom, I can, of course, crash on that. And there is also a consequence. If you're too close to the ladder and it just happens to get you, it will bounce you. That's a wonderful quirk, and I would like to keep that in, because it's just hilarious when you get bounced by a ladder and it shoots you 10 feet in the air. That's just fun. So that I will probably keep in. Now, a flip in a row versus a flip. So here you go. So here, every time you do a flip, it will bank the flip in the flips section down here on the bottom right. It will bank the flip. So if I do a single flip here, it will bank it, and that will stay. Now, if I go ahead and do another flip, you can see it banks the next flip. But on the cloud that kind of appears, you will see how many flips in a row that you've achieved. So here's one flip. It says one flip in a row, 2 flips in a row, 3 flips in a row, 4 flips in a row. If I wait too long and then I go, I no longer have a flip in a row. It starts again. So you have to be aware of that. That is your flip in a row counter that floats above your head. It gives you a little bit of time, but if it fades out, you're losing a flip. So you got to make sure that you get it before it fades all the way out. Okay, so then we are on ladders. So here we go. We have some ladders. Now when you see, of course, the ladders in the game, you won't see the debugging stuff there. There was a hiccup that I've been working on to fix, which is the ladders were getting stuck. So now they shouldn't get stuck, but we'll see that. So, and once you land on a ladder, the next one will open, and it'll continue. And then the next one should open, and then it should continue. Hey. Okay, so this next mission is to hover in place. So for the hover missions, there is a box, and if you hover in it, you have to stay within the box. And this is really to test your skills, so you can't just hover out here or hover up there. You have to be in this box here. Once you get it, it will turn green, and then you can bank that time. However, if you are hovering and you're out of the box, it will flicker red, and after about 3 seconds or so, it will clear the timer. So you do have to make sure that you're in this box. The timer will not clear if it's past the target time. So it should not clear. I'm going to sit here for like 3 seconds or so. You'll see it'll stay there, which is great. But if it's not at the target time, it will not bank. So you got to make sure that you have it. Okay. Now for these missions here, these do unlock with the number of flight credits. These will unlock automatically. You don't have to actually purchase them. So if you've accumulated that number of flight credits, you can unlock them. Spending flight credits will not lock these again, so you don't have to worry about that. I was going to make a store for them. Kind of like that they open automatically. So I kind of left that in. If you think I should make these into like the shop system or implement them that way, let me know. But at the moment, I kind of like that they open as like a credit system, whereas down here, you know, inside the ship hangar, these you have to be a little bit more exclusive about, because the launch site isn't all that crucial to the gameplay. It's just another pretty background to kind of have, and I don't like having players spend their currency on things that are you know, quote unquote useless. They don't changing the background only changes the aesthetic, right? Whereas the ships actually do something, and so I figured it'd be more than worthwhile to have the players spend the credits on things that would make a difference in the game versus, you know, the backgrounds, which don't really make all that much of a difference. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at all the different ships and how they work. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the firecracker here, which is our default. Now to actually equip a ship, you just select and it will remember which one you have. So if I move back in and out, you can see it remembers. So your if we look here, the firecracker is a trustworthy rocket. What could go wrong? It's pretty rounded, one of the more balanced ships in the game. It does have some stability issues. You can see that as I'm doing my revolutions, it does kind of wobble a little bit. Or if I do flips in a row, you can... Hi, kitten. If I do some flips in a row here, you can see it kind of wobbles toward the one side or the other. So there, if you mess with it, you will notice some stability issues. It's got a stability about 8 out of 10 or 6 out of 10, something like that. If we go back and take a look. But it's pretty well rounded, one of the more easier ones to control. Definitely a beginner ship. I'll go ahead and jump back into my hangar here. And you can see, yeah, it's an 8 out of 10 on stability. The Thunder Flipper is a high-powered rocket with a low center of gravity, ideal for ladders. It is a 6 out of 10. It does, because it's more of a top-heavy rocket, it does have more stability issues, but it will definitely clear ladders a lot more effectively than some of the other ships. So I can do this, and typically one jump, one flip for this particular one. It's all about timing. If your timing's off, you're going to mess it up. But if you get the timing feel down, it's one jump, one flip. You don't have to really worry too hard. Just get the timing, and then, well, bam. And it makes ladders a breeze. That's the whole point of it. But it does have stability issues. So if I continue to flip, try to do multiple flips in a row here, you can see that it's a bit wonky. And if I let me go to a level that is a little bit more open here. Let me go to endless. If I try doing multiple flips in a row, it's a bit tricky because it's a little overbalanced. So if I try after a little bit and I'm not very particular on my timing, I will wobble forward and end up crashing. So let me see if I can get it to Right now it's making a liar out of me and being really good, but typically it's a bit overbalanced, and you after like a couple flips it'll tip forward and just break. So it's not ideal for that sort of thing, but that's not what it was made for. Okay, Little Pepper. Little Pepper here. This is basically the Thunder Flipper in a much smaller package. So it has the same thrust as the Thunder Flipper. However, it has an interesting bonus. So a small rocket with a lot of initial thrust and fast rotation at the cost of stability. So it is a little bit more stable than the Thunder Flipper, a little bit less stable than your Firecracker. Rotation, however, can be slowed with a well-timed boost. So if it's going too fast, you can tap to prevent it from getting too quick. So this one's also pretty decent for ladders because it's a smaller profile. Whoops. But you can see we get the same kind of boost here. But if I'm in the middle of a flip here, you can see it has some stability issues. But if I hold down thrust, I can slow down the timing. So if I can play with the actual rotation a little bit by timing how I'm going to boost. This wonderful guy, the Stout Cruiser, initially designed as a luxury transport, this short yet stout cruiser is a slow, steady ride. It is a little bit more stable than the Firecracker, but it is not quite as, it doesn't have as much thrust, so it takes a few extra hits to kind of get it to go. So if you're using it for any of these, let me just go and grab this one here. You can see it doesn't quite just one hit of the button. It's not enough to give it a full revolution. It has half the revolutions, but it's easier to control. My personal favorite is the Flying Saucer. This one has a stability of 10 out of 10. It does have a flip rate, one of the higher flip rates of 1 revolution per second. You can see that this one is a 0.5. This one is 1.25, one of the fastest ones. And then you have 0.5 and then a 1. It's a much smaller profile, so the flips actually are a bit quicker than you would expect because it's just so short. And then the thrust is pretty good, and you can see it says the perfect choice for unlicensed pilots with horrible crash records. So if you're having a hard time in the game and you crash a lot, this one is going to be your friend. You can also hold down the thrust to cancel out rotations and hover. Double tap thrust to re-engage your standard rotation. So if I jump in, let's go to endless here. And if I just tap space, you can see it flips. It's perfect, much tighter than the actual Firecracker. Very, very good. But you can see I also have some other abilities on this thing. Boop. This thing is difficult to break, so I can flip this thing and let it bounce a little bit, and it can take some damage. I think falling from here is devastating. Oh, I got that. If I land directly on top, it's definitely going to break. And then, of course, you can stop rotating and just hover. So if you hold down your flip button, hi kitten. So if you hold down your tap, you can see you just disengage rotation altogether, and then you can flip. And yeah, you can hover. Anyway, so this is definitely one of my favorite ships in the game. A lot of fun. It is breakable, but it's definitely more durable than the other ships. And then down here, the last but not least, we have our lander. It says, a landing pod for exploring low-gravity environments. Hold thrust to slow your descent. Double tap thrust, and hold thrust to rotate. Release to stop rotating. So that's a bit tricky, but we'll go over how that works. Let's go into endless here. And we'll do this in regular gravity just so you can see. If I hit the button, you can see it does not flip. Okay? And yeah, it actually does not bank any flips. You see that? So the way this works is if I hold down the space bar, I can very gently lower my descent. Okay? If I want to flip, once I'm in the air, I can double tap and then hold. And then I can rotate and then continue. So if I double tap and hold, I'll rotate. If I let go, it will stop the flip. So again, double tap and hold, it flips. If I let go at any point along this way, it's just going to stop rotating. So you do have to kind of get used to that, but it gives you a lot of stability control. So it's not a ship that's going to roll on the left and right very often. It can land from a lot of different angles. So if I like tilt this back, let's see how far back I can go. So it landed pretty well from there. And again, I can control my thrust, pick exactly how I want to orient and then land. And like I said, it's designed really to handle low G environments. So if you jump into, let's say, it's a little bit slow because it's building in, but here we go. And you have the lower gravity, of course. And if I just hold down the thrust, you can see how that kind of interacts, which is cool. And I can change my rotation. And yeah, this is kind of like what what's meant for, is dealing with these environments. Yay! And yeah, so that's kind of like Rocket Flip in a nutshell. There is one quirk with the lander. In particular, if I go into, let's go to a mission here that has ladders. I am aware of this, so like if this happens to you, no need for a comment. I do know about that one, which is it sometimes gets stuck. The legs can get, oh, there's that bounce. There's that bounce I was talking about earlier. It's hilarious when you get bounced. So that's going to stay in. But you can see how my leg kind of went through the floor there. That does happen on the lander. I'm aware of it. Working on a way to counteract that. So right at the moment, it does not do well on ladders. So I would just avoid it on ladders. Yeah, so what's happening is the ladder, that's swinging up, and depending on the frame rate, it's kind of clipping through the legs, and then that's when it gets kind of stuck. It has to deal with like a frame rate and collision detection issue, which I'm going to iron out, but at the moment that is a thing that I'm aware of. But yeah, this is Rocket Flip in a nutshell. And again, you can hop on to the Google Play Store, or you can go to Lame Duck Studios. On the homepage, you can grab the download link here. Go ahead and download it, test it, play it, break it, let me know. Give me all kinds of feedback. It helps me improve and helps me produce better work, better content for you. And I'm excited. Hopefully you're excited. Stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next devlog, on the next update, and next time. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you enjoyed that video just watched, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, we're at 1,400 subscribers. Woo! If you have any suggestions for future videos, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And if you want to keep up with me on Twitter, it's BruceRF1. That's also in the description. And if you want to support the channel, make it easier for me to make content for you, check out some of my merch or one of my books. But yeah, all that, again, is in the description. Check it out, and I shall see you next time.